What is up, y'all? Victory Tuesday. It tastes good.
Yeah, it
Victory
does.
Monday carries into Tuesday, and when you end the season with a win, it means you get to hang on to that for 8 months. So, Believe It Commander Show, guys. Anthony Armstrong here. Brian Murphy, all the way in the ATL. He's hanging out. What is good, Brian? How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. It's 1 week too late, but I will always take a win. Team finishes at 500. It's a good way to end the season. We'll break all that down, but a lot of good stuff going on in the NFL and playoffs coming up. So more football is great, and I'm excited for these playoffs. I think there's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, indeed. Week 18 was a pretty special week. I mean, the way things happened in Buffalo, you had Naeem
Hmm.
Hines kicking off the game. Well, the King kicked off and he took it back to the house.
That's
And he had
right.
another kick return going on in that game as well. So that's a great way to honor DeMar Hamlin, who was out of the hospital and back in Buffalo. So that's good
Incredible.
news. Love to hear that. He took his first walk around the hospital, took a lap, and he's on a good fast track to being back healthy. So excited to hear that about him. But tell us about our sponsor, Bet Online.
Yeah, BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. Everything from the NFL playoffs to esports to NBA, all that good stuff. You always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. Plus all their live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite leagues and events. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use our promo code BLEAV to receive your rewards. Bet Online, where the game starts.
Yes, indeed. That's where the game starts. Bet Online. Appreciate those guys. I saw that there is they have like a playoff pick'em contest that you can get on there. Think it gives you a chance to win a whole bunch of money. You get there, do your little deposit, go ahead and put your money down, and maybe you pick and see who's going to win throughout these playoffs. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the week.
That's right.
But let's go back to touch on those NFL news and notes. Like we said, I saw today somebody got himself a lot of money.
That's right.
Mr. Roquan Smith broke
Yeah.
the bank. $100 million man, 5 years up there in Buffalo. I know we were fighting and wanting him to make his way down to Washington, but he's just down the road. He's still in the DMV, but in different team colors. Roquan Smith gets paid, so congratulations to that guy.
Highest paid in NFL history, $45 million, fully guaranteed. That guy's a baller, and it feels like the Ravens just churn out all pro linebackers. So it's kind of fitting that he signed that in Baltimore. Although Chicago is known for their linebackers as well. But yeah, it would have been nice to have him in DC. But you're right, he's in that DMV area. He's solid. The only issue I have with it is that he's wearing number 18, which does not seem like a very good linebacker number. But other than that, kudos to him, and I think he's going to be a solid linebacker for a long, long time.
Yeah, that's the truth. The Georgia Bulldog who put a thumping on TCU. I turned that game on. And I turned on the screen. I said, "Ooh!" I was like, "Ooh, damn!"
Yeah.
Because it was like right during bedtime, and then I think I was hopped on another podcast, came back, and I was like, "Let me go see what's going on in this game, man." And I was like, 24-.
Yeah.
And then I turned it back, and it like multiplied by 2 and 3. So I was like, you know what? They were just a little bit outpowered there, by old TCU, but that's okay. Other good news, DeMar Hamlin, like we just said, is out of the hospital. He's back in Buffalo, and all across the league, they found a great way to honor him. Every team was able to honor and pay tribute to DeMar Hamlin. And be encouraging. It was good to see the threes on the hats, and people had jerseys out there. So I'm pretty sure that the NFL shop numbers were probably off the charts for that week. For those few days, DeMar Hamlin probably had to be the highest selling jersey. That'd be my guess and my estimation.
Yeah, and they said that he was watching the game, and when Naheem Hines returned that kickoff to start the game, that he set off every alarm in the ICU. So that was pretty awesome to hear that he was fired up and be able to watch his team. And now, we heard the good news that he was discharged out of Cincinnati on his way to Buffalo. And man, what a miracle! What a crazy week for that guy. And we're so glad that it's good news.
When you add to it, I heard the statistic that it had been 3 years and I think 3 days or something like that. 3 years and 3 games, and the Bills were down by 3 at the last time they had a kick return to the house. So, I mean, fitting that they were able to go ahead and make that happen on that day in that game. But that leads us right into the playoffs. That leads us into the playoffs. It was a sensational end to the regular season, even all the way down to that Packers and Lions game. I don't know if you stayed up and watched it. I did. I thought that was a hell of a game by the Lions. They showed up biting kneecaps and all, and they found a way to make sure the cheese was melted. They melted the cheese and kept those guys out of the playoffs.
It was bittersweet for me. I say bittersweet, but the Seahawks had already won earlier in the day, which meant that the Lions were eliminated. It would have just been so sweet had the Lions won that game and then gone to the playoffs. But yeah, that was impressive for them to go into Lambeau knowing that they couldn't make it to the playoffs. But they were like, hey, if we can't make it, you're not going either. And they shut down Aaron Rodgers. And that opens up a whole nother can of worms. This is Aaron Rodgers' last time in Lambeau. But you're right. That whole Saturday into Sunday this past week to decide the playoff field was a lot of fun. I love that the league kind of flexes everything around. So you're kind of scoreboard watching while watching your game, while making sure you're taking care of your opponent. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it's the 14 best teams are in the playoffs right now, and we'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, it should be exciting. I really think it's going to be a good playoff. I mean, last year's playoffs were crazy.
Unbelievable.
The whole season had been exciting and very entertaining. And I'm sure the script writers for the NFL have something in store for us in this upcoming playoffs as well. I mean, Seattle, basically started in week 18. Like that's like the pre-wild card playoff, games, because people in Seattle were cheering for folks in Detroit. And honestly, I can say I am very happy for Geno Smith and that crew to be in the playoffs. I mean, if Buffalo is not your sweetheart team, Seattle is probably number 2 right there. So I'm cheering for Seattle to go out there, at least get them a W. I think they can, put up a fight and see what they can do in this first week. Who do they play in this first week?
I think they got the third matchup against the 49ers, which will be tough. But Geno Smith was the only quarterback to take 100% of his team's snaps. So had I told you that at the beginning of the year, you would have thought I was crazy. But it just, what a year for that guy. And whether or not they get the job done against the 49ers, it was just kind of cool to see him. I mean, I think he's got to be the comeback player of the year, right? I mean, just see the turnaround that he had, and he won them some games. It wasn't like he was just a game manager. He went out there and he was throwing the ball around. So, yeah, that was fun to see. Another one I really enjoyed was the Jaguars beating the Titans. Thought that was a nice, hard-nosed game. For all the talk about Jacksonville's offense, it was their defense and the other Josh Allen scoring on a fumble return to win it for them. So I'm excited to see some of these young quarterbacks. I saw another stat that Patrick Mahomes at 27 is the oldest quarterback in the AFC in the playoffs. Can you believe it?
Wow, 27 years old? Good night. I mean, shoot. Fortunately, Tom had switched sides, went over to Tampa. But man, that seems to be so young. Young to be the oldest. But when I looked at the quarterbacks on the AFC side, majority of them are first rounders. Most of them in like that top 5 range. Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes was not top 5. I think he was like 10 or 11, maybe 12. Who else is over there? Who knows what you're going to get? Justin Herbert's on there, Lamar maybe, or one of that triage of quarterbacks, that triad of guys that they have, and he was number 32. So a lot of first round quarterbacks over there. But then on the flip side, the NFC, you got a whole bunch of quarterbacks that are drafted 3rd round, 4th round, later on in the draft that are 6th round, obviously Tom Brady. So it's interesting to see when everybody, this gets back to that whole, like, where do you get a quarterback and how you have to reach for one. You can get to the playoffs either way. Mm-hmm. You really can. And then I would think that some of those teams in the AFC are built around those quarterbacks. And some of the teams in the NFC are probably more solid teams overall. Yeah. You know what I mean? Not knocking the other players that are on, the Chiefs or the Bengals or those guys. But you really see, like, hey, it's Joe Burrow. And he's been the guy to really help elevate that team. But you look at Jalen Hurts, he's played out of his mind too. Probably an NFL MVP candidate, I'm sorry. So shoot, you can get it done either way. So pay attention, Commanders fans.
That's right.
Pay attention. You may have somebody in that special Sam Howell who showed out against the Commanders, and he statistically it wasn't anything special. But whenever you show out your first time on the field, first time to start, You beat your rival, Dallas Cowboys. You're in good standings with anybody out there in D.C. The guy doesn't eat steak, he doesn't eat red meat, but he could get a free steak around
That's
the
right.
DMV if he wanted to.
Yeah, he could get some wings or something if he's not going to have a steak. But yeah, that was we talked about it. That's what we wanted to see. We wanted to see the young guy get a chance to go out there. His first career pass is a touchdown to Terry McLaurin. The defense played really well to set him up in some good scenarios. And I think they were talking about it on the broadcast. I think it was Greg Olson was saying, he got into some sticky situations. He took some sacks. He threw a bad pick in the end zone and he bounced back. And that's all you can ask for a quarterback. And it was encouraging to see. It was it stinks that it was in a meaningless game, when it was all said and done. But we talked about it, nothing's really meaningless in the NFL. That mattered a lot to him and a lot to those young guys that got the chance to play. And kudos to him for going out there and showing that he could hang. And maybe, I don't know if he's going to be a stud. I don't know if he's going to be an all-pro or a pro bowler, but he showed that he could hang. He showed that he could take some hits because the Cowboys still got after him a little bit. But yeah, that was really encouraging to see and kind of sets up for an intriguing next year with what the Commanders do at quarterback. But yeah, you had to like what you saw of the rookie on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got Terry McLaurin that mentioned he was like, "Hey, this guy can do something with it. He can help him out in the future." The fact that he showed mental toughness and was able to just continue to bounce back and go back out there and was unfazed. That's what you need to have at that position. I mean, you can't, hang your head. You got to be the leader of a team. You got to be able to go out there and lead the charge. And he did a good job of that. And shoot, I'm excited to see, when you get healthier across the board and you have, some of those big name guys back in there. I mean, you look at the guard, Chris Paul, he got in there and had a hell of a day as well. So he's going to, be in the mix at what they do on the offensive line. I think that's the most important position as a whole to pay attention to, is to make sure your O-line is solid for whoever is going to be your quarterback. So great game by there, but overall, the Commanders, they absolutely crushed those Cowboys, send those guys into the playoffs. Not really looking too good. I mean, they're limping in, having to go against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They lost to those guys in week 1. So now, who knows what the Cowboys are going to do? You would think they'd be prepared, but this isn't a Cowboys show. You can go check out another show.
Yeah, that's right.
That's with Jeff Kavanaugh and Jesse Holley. You can go listen to that one if you'd like to. But if you're here with us, we're going to talk about how the Commanders crushed those Cowboys. And overall, I mean, they held them to about 29 yards rushing for Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, 14, 15 carries, something very minuscule. And I think that speaks to the absolute strength of this defense.
Yeah, I think so too. The defense was on display. They played really well, especially with a bunch of guys missing. John Allen was out. Benjamin St-Juste. They had put Jamin Davis on IR. It was kind of a ragtag bunch, but they still made some plays. And yeah, it was really impressive. And Tony Pollard, I think, ended up short of 1,000 yards. You kind of thought that was a no-brainer when he needed, I think, maybe 20-something, 30-something. He only ends up with 19 yards on the ground, like you said. They absolutely dominated. It was fun, don't get me wrong, but it made losing the week before to the Browns that much more frustrating, because this could have been an inspirational win that jettisoned you into the playoffs. So that was kind of what was going on in the back of my mind. Don't get me wrong, I'll beat the Cowboys, whether I'm 0-16 or whether I'm 15-1. But that was kind of the first thought. I was like, gosh, if they could have just put this together the week before, had they stuck with Taylor Hines, whatever it was, we could be talking about the playoffs right now. And so that was the frustrating thing. And while it was fun and we got to see Sam Howell, man, I wish we were talking about the playoffs, but it is what it is.
It is what it is for sure. I mean, and I could say, as bittersweet as it is, you could go back and you could look at this season as a whole and say, you know what? There's some good things out here.
Absolutely.
I mean, I saw some polls on Twitter, and obviously Twitter is a generally more negative space. And I had to chime in. I was like, honestly, somebody asked to rate the season for the team, and I'll pose that question to you. But yeah, do yours 1 to 10. What would you give the rating of the season?
I would give it a solid 6. I think that it, had another game gone their way, we would have been talking about a 7 or 8. But I think, if at the beginning of the season, I think I would have taken 8-1. You know what I mean? If I heard that at the beginning of the season. However, when you hear that the team was 7-5 and then they finished 8-1, that's where it's a little frustrating. That's what knocks it down a little bit. But I think you're right, and I think you said it all season long, that just because you win a game doesn't mean you were perfect. just because you lose a game doesn't mean that there weren't positives to take from it. And I think we saw some growth from a lot of guys. Deron Payne turned into a stud that, you hope they bring him back, but Jamin Davis made some plays. You think you've probably found a cornerback of the future in Benjamin St-Juste. You got to see some plays being made by the offense, and Jahan Dotson turned out to be a pretty solid pick, which he was questioned all, off season long heading into the season. Brian Robinson. So there were a lot of positives. I think getting to the playoffs would have bumped that grade up for me a little bit, but I'm there with a solid 6. And like, if I had to give it a letter grade, I think it was a C plus, maybe a low B.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think I said it was a 6, and my biggest reasoning was, there were literally a couple of games. They left some meat on the bone.
Yeah.
They left some meat on the bone. You're thinking both Giants games in Cleveland. Those 3 come to my mind where I could say at least one of the Giants game and in that Cleveland game, you're flipping it and you're sitting there saying, hey, they're in the playoffs and now they're trying to play for a little bit more. It wasn't a blowout in those games. They were in a lot of those football games and frankly, making some switches and not having some inconsistency. You fixed a few of these things, you're going to be in a much better position. And ultimately, you mentioned Jahan Dotson. The guy, he came back from an injury and then continued to accelerate on that same trajectory that he started the season with. Deron Payne, you mentioned. It's good to have Chase Young back too.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Feels good to have him back. And sure, I wish it was a week or 2 prior, but he's gotten past whatever mental blocks he was going through to be able to get out there and have some impact. So there'll be some contract stuff to handle next year and beyond that, but ultimately finishing this season as it is. I said at best, 10-win team. You take those other 3 wins, it's a 10-win team.
Right.
So you're close. You're really close.
And you didn't even mention a game in Minnesota where you had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. The Titans game where you throw a pick down at the 1-yard line. There's all kinds of stuff. And you could go the other way too. They won a lot of one-possession games. They pulled some games out at the end that you didn't think they'd be able to. So it's hard to really nitpick that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Leaving some meat on the bone is the best way to put it, to where I think that, there is some solid stuff to build off of moving forward. I think that, they weren't a pushover in many games this year, which they have been in the past. So, that is encouraging to see. You got to figure out, obviously, the quarterback position. You got to figure out a couple other pieces. But I think you have a solid foundation of some young guys that should be a part of this moving forward and should be bringing you some wins and helping you be competitive in the division and hopefully later on in the conference and, beyond.
Nope. And I had this question posed to me. I'll ask it to you. You put on your GM hat. What are you doing? What are you doing in the quarterback room?
Yeah. So you're picking 16th, had some things broken. You would have had to lose, which wouldn't have been fun. I like talking about beating the Cowboys, but you could have gotten up to the top 10, I think. I don't know who's available at 16. That's my first thought as you go to the draft. Is there a quarterback? Is an Anthony Richardson there? I don't think you're going to end up with a Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. I think they're going top 5 easily. That makes me think that, with what Sam Howell did, I think he looked solid. I think that he can grow. I think he can learn with some more reps and some more opportunities. I think that they roll with Sam Howell as one of their quarterbacks. I think they either re-sign Taylor Heineke or another veteran of that kind of similar idea, maybe a journeyman. I'm thinking of a guy like Case Keenum, that type that's been around a little bit, that has started from time to time. And I think you roll with that next season. I don't think you need to try to break the bank. I think that you got some guys that can make some plays. And I think you see what you mostly have in Sam Howell with a veteran that can step in if need be. I think that would be my plan. I'm not trying to break the bank or move up to that number 1 spot per se. And I think you've tried the veteran, go get a veteran quarterback. I just don't know how often that works. So I'd roll with Sam Howell and a veteran and see what you got next season.
I'm with you on there. I'm saying Sam Howell and Taylor Heineke will be your 2.
So that would be my first pick as well, because he knows the system. He knows what you're trying to do. I think he loves being there, and I think he'd be a great mentor. I think that he was part of the reason that Sam Howell started in Week 18, and I think they would play off well of each other. I think you go in, you say, you guys both have the chance to win this job, and you go at it. It just remains to be seen, do they want to bring Taylor back? Does he want to come back? That kind of thing. So he would be my first choice. Don't get me wrong. But if you had to, go to plan B to another veteran, that would be kind of my game plan.
Yeah, I'm with you on those. I mean, don't go chasing the quarterback early in the draft. I think there are plenty of positions of need that can be addressed. I think Jamin Davis, like you mentioned earlier, had a hell of a season, led the team in tackles. We're still looking for a playmaker, another playmaker in that
Mm-hmm.
linebacker position, somebody that's really going to impact the game. Georgia seems always spit out somebody. Bama's always going to have somebody. So I'm sure there are going to be some talented players out there. Hell, Andre Carter, former Redskin Andre Carter, his son is coming out of the draft as well, into
Yeah.
the draft as well. He plays linebacker position, so there's a lot of options that are going to be out there. You can go to the cornerback. Another former NFL player, Joey Porter Jr.
Yeah.
is at cornerback. Do you try to consider bringing him in? Is he going to be a position to be opposite of Kendall Fuller? Yes, you got Benjamin St. Juste, and I think St. Juste is definitely going to be in play, but you can still add a little bit of depth there. But I think at 16, I'm looking for a starter. I'm
Yeah.
looking for somebody that's going to be able to get plug and play. And I haven't looked at offensive line, but definitely if there's an O lineman that's there that's nasty and is gritty and can really get out there and make an impact and move some people, hell, throw him in the mix as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big thing. But quarterback for sure, Sam Howell and Taylor Heineke are probably your top two. You may draft somebody later on to have an extra arm, just to have somebody in the fold. You could go sign, a veteran to just kind of be around for the team and fill things in that way. That'd be the way I'd address it. The way the running back position went down, I think you obviously know Brian Robinson's number one, and then maybe the young fellow Williams is number two.
Yeah.
Jared Patterson's earned the right to get some looks as well. And they may have played well enough to kind of maybe consider moving on from AG. I don't know what his contract status is looking like right now, but I mean, hey, that could be something that you have to look to as well. So there's a lot of things to address, but please don't put on that quarterback needs to be the number one priority hat right now. I think that when you mentioned earlier with bringing in a big vet, I don't think big vets want to go to a team that has some pieces to fill in.
Yeah.
Big vets want to be able to walk in and say, okay, you got everything I need. I'm ready to go and cook. I'm ready to be the chef over here. Not talking about Russell Wilson, but either way, yeah.
I mean, he looked okay at times. It was bad a lot of the season, but it just in the past, it hasn't always worked where a veteran quarterback has just magically gone to another team and made it happen. I mean, we know Tom Brady, but Tom Brady is a whole different animal. I mean, Ryan Tannehill has had a little bit of success moving teams, but now, he's injured and who knows there, but we just seen so many veteran quarterbacks that just, maybe the grass is always greener on the other side, or maybe with this weapon, or maybe one more wide receiver, or this coach. I'm thinking about Derek Carr, like he's solid, but we're just going to get, probably the same level Derek Carr. It's not going to all of a sudden click for him in DC where it wasn't in Las Vegas or Oakland. So yeah, I think that you try to work in-house with a guy like Sam Howell, Taylor Heineke, and then, if it really is bad and you're looking at a quarterback in the early parts of the draft the year after that, that's when you go for it. But yeah, I think this team needs to be out of the reaching for quarterbacks, whether it be a bad contract, a bad trade, or moving up. I think you got to deal with what you got.
Yeah, and this gets back to how I was saying, start building the team to have an identity that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Just build the team, start having an identity, and you can easily, draft replacements and then look to develop those guys. I feel like that's one thing that the team hasn't been very good at. They don't really develop a lot of really good quarterbacks. And I say that almost in jest. I mean, they've had good quarterbacks come through. Obviously, Kirk Cousins was there. RG3 was there. He obviously got injured, but most part has been try to bring other people in and hopefully they can fix it. I mean, maybe you take the time to try to develop your own for once.
Yeah.
Having some consistency and continuity, you'll see big leaps. I mean, you bring in a whole new quarterback. Now they got to go fly out and have a QB receiver camp again. They got to learn a whole system all over again. And you think about what's going to happen at the coaching. Are the coach is going to change? Are the OC is going to change? Because that once again ends up being a whole other switch. Now, if you're able to have at least the same personnel on the field, they can learn the offense together, and that the same continuity is still there. Now you're just calling different plays rather than brand new person trying to feel each other out. And I think you got something with the guys that you have on the field.
Yeah, so this is a question I think you're kind of leaning the same way. I think we both assume Ron Rivera is back, right? I think with the uncertainty revolving around the owner, I think the fact that for as great as the record hasn't been, he has stabilized this team to be competitive. So there's a lot to be said about that. So I'm with you. I think one of the good things about that is the stability, but also, a new coach, if a new owner, this time next year after the 23 season, it might not matter who your quarterback is anyway. They're going to want to clean house. They're going to want to bring in their own guy. So you might as well roll with what you got and not mortgage the future too badly for that new coach and that new owner. So I think it could be really cool to see Sam Howell, get the chance. It was fun watching him throw the ball to Jahan Dotson a couple of times. Looked like they had a little good thing going. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't think you need to do anything too crazy because this team has some pieces that could potentially get you some wins if you can kind of keep that core group together.
Yes, yes, and yes. I'm with all of that. I'm with all of that. And I can say the best thing about all of it is to be able to talk about the off season, knowing that you don't have to worry about looking in the rearview mirror saying, man, well, they dropped the one against, Dallas at the end of the season. So
Yeah.
you got a W, and there's a lot of positivity and good vibes moving forward. And I've said it online. I'll say it here. I think the team is close. I think they're close. May have a good off season, and the way the NFC East is going, I mean, shoot, they were almost in the playoffs this year. I could say, and I'm willing to stand on it now that they make the playoffs next year.
Love it.
I can say that they'll be there. They can make the playoffs. They will be in the playoffs next season, 2023. You name it. It's right here on Believe in Commanders show. I've said it. It is going to happen.
I love it. Well, and you're right. They go 2-3-1 in the division, and the 2 wins are against the 2 best teams in the division. Somehow they couldn't get a win against the Giants, but yeah, they played their own division really tough, and that's the way you got to do it. And I think next year they figure out a couple of those wins to get into the playoffs. So I'm with you. I like where this team is headed, and I'm excited to see what they do in the offseason. That's the fun part. But we're going to break down the playoffs for the teams that are remaining. A lot of good matchups. And we'll do that later on in the week, kind of dive into all of it, look at the spreads and all that fun stuff, because there are some intriguing matchups coming up.
They really are, and I think there's going to be a couple of upsets.
I like
that's
it.
what I got in my pocketbook here. But I'll save that for later on in the week. Brian, let's see here. We'll tell them once again about Believe in Commanders is the best show out here. Make sure you listen to it. But guys, go check out betonline.ag. Use our code Believe BLEAV to get your 50% welcome bonus. If you've been listening and you haven't tried it yet, hey, maybe this is the time. Obviously you do things responsibly, but go over there and get yourself a welcome bonus of 50%, and maybe you can take a couple of bets on some of those playoff games or NBA or NHL or whatever's going on out there. There's a lot on that Bet Online.
Yeah, that's right. And you can listen to us all over the place. It's been fun. TuneIn Radio, SiriusXM, Stadium, all your favorite streaming platforms, and they even posted the show on YouTube. So thank you guys for rolling with us all season long. The Commander season is over. But we're going to still be putting stuff out as the playoffs roll along, as the off season goes. NFL never sleeps. We started this in March with plenty to talk about. So we'll continue that going into the off season. Can't wait to talk about it and see what the Commanders do to better themselves for 2023. And then we'll see also what happens in the playoffs and beyond. So thank you guys for listening all season long. And we'll be back later this week and the weeks to come. So thank you guys so much.
Yes, indeed. Y'all be easy. Left hand up.
That's right.